People of Reddit, what stupid rule at your work/school backfired beautifully? I was working as a medical assistant at a private practice medical clinic. Our clinic manager wouldn't allow the new receptionist to drive to the bank to deposit cash. Made her walk carrying the money bag so that she couldn't drive away with the money. Bizarre. I know. That went on for a few weeks. Then the receptionist was mugged and over $1,000 in cash was stolen. She was allowed to drive after that. My boss started putting all staff required to start 15 minutes earlier than indicated on the roster. I started keeping track of my unpaid overtime and stung her for 3 paid days off. That's not required anymore. I worked for a company that did that. One lawsuit later, they don't do it anymore and owed a lot of us back pay. Back in the early 00s, my high school implemented a policy that you had to wear your ID tag at all times. If you didn't have it on, you were sent home. So many students lost their ID tag to go grab food or skip a class. We were the only graduating class to wear them all 4 years. The policy ended soon after. Not mine, but an old roommate of mine was a senior developer for a small company. It was an open secret that one of the other senior developers, a guy who had been there since the beginning, would sometimes spend time looking at plastic surgery photos before/after shots, photos of active procedures, etc. He did it enough that people would poke fun at him about it, but he didn't seem embarrassed about it, and it wasn't harming anyone. Well, one day a project manager said something to the CEO about this guy's ongoing plastic surgery obsession, and the CEO flipped. He said that, going forward, no one was allowed to use their work computers to access external websites at all. Anyone who's ever been a developer knows that half the job is Googling stuff, so this policy pretty much halted productivity in its tracks. It only lasted a day before the CEO retracted the rule, but let everyone know that their browser history would be monitored going forward. After that, no one really changed their behavior, they just started remotely accessing their home computers to browse instead. Yes, I am going to outsmart computer programmers about how to use their time on the computers more effectively. I am very smart. I worked at Starbucks for like 5+ years before and during undergrad, and at one point our district manager thought it was a good idea to implement a just say yes policy, where we literally weren't allowed to tell the customer no. Lasted for about 3 months, and in that 3 months our unaccounted product and waste went up over 300%, because when the POS didn't have a way to punch in a customer request we had to just do it anyways. We also got complaints from stores in surrounding districts because they had angry customers who were requesting things that were against local food service code, and told them that we did it for them at our store. I knew exactly how that policy was going to play out, and I just laughed every time management was freaking out about the problems it was causing. Give me all the money in the cash register and make me a free iced coffee. Yes. We shall not deny a customer even the most ridiculous request. Edit. Screwed up the line. Lol. We shall never deny a guest, even the most ridiculous request. I am amazed that someone came up with that policy and thought it was a good idea. My spouse's workplace realized they didn't have a policy about sending sexual images or jokes as part of their email acceptable use policy, so they added it. Except they made it a firing offense to send or receive sexual content. I think the intent was to stop people from subscribing to such content. They also said that your access would be immediately revoked until a determination was made. So someone got fired for something else and decided to send their whole management chain a graphically sexual image, then report it using the anonymous tip line. IT got the report, concluded they did indeed receive sexual content, and did as required, suspended all the involved email accounts, including the SVPs. The policy has since been reworded. There's burning bridges and then there's drying up the lake just to fill it with gasoline. Damn. I'd assume that if you get fired, they're not exactly going to give you a glowing recommendation. Edit. I must admit I hadn't thought of the possibility of lawsuits. I'm from a country far less litigious than the USA. I'm not saying you couldn't sue for defamation where I am, it just hadn't crossed my mind. No recommendation, not a huge deal. But I wouldn't want people actively spreading my info and trying to blackball me either. The bottom floor of my secondary school was a square that had corridor all the way around. After some incident where a kid got knocked over, they implemented a one-way system. Unfortunately, they were very strict on enforcing it. If you accidentally walked past your class, you couldn't just turn around. They seemed very proud of their new rule. Until everyone started showing up late for class because they had to do extra laps of the bottom floor. That's ridiculous. My daughter is experiencing this with COVID one-way rules. They're only actually in school once or twice a week between snow and hybrid, so none of them know where the hell they're going, and if they miss, they have to go around again. A place I used to work had a rule that executive-level staff needed to be contactable when on leave, so they had a section on the leave form for the address of where you'd be staying and a contact number. Some knuckle shuffler in HR decided it applied to all staff and the shenanigans began. People would put down the address and phone number of sex shops, sports grounds, and medical clinics. I gave the latitude and longitude of the place I was going camping and the UHF frequency channel my radio would be tuned to. I once had a manager tell us we couldn't hang out with each other outside of work unless we invited everyone. No. Edit, her name was not Michael Scott. So that's what happened to the kid who never got invited to parties. My company used to be a small startup. In my first year I was the project manager and architect for a global system rollout. I put in my vacation days for Burning Man 6 months out, in February, and my PTO was approved. Then a few months later, June, my boss, who had been head of the IT department, got a new boss, new head of IT. With a month to go until Burning Man, the new head of IT told me that my project rollout was too important for me to be uncontactable at all and that I would need to take a satellite phone to Burning Man or my vacation would be cancelled. We were still 3 months from go live, but he decided that we were at a critical moment that I had to be available for. However, neither my boss nor the new head of IT wanted to carry out the daily $18/minute satellite phone calls with me, probably because they knew it was violating some labor law. So they got one of the guys in the London office to call me in the Black Rock Desert each day. I said I wouldn't take the calls before 1 p.m., which was 9 p.m. for our man in London. Every day he called he had had a few beers, and didn't give a crap about project updates, he just wanted to know what parties I'd been to and what art I'd seen. That's called team player. Hope you shared photos with him. Edit, hope you offered to buy him more beers, via an e-transfer. That's the most logical thing to do to keep that cycle and relationship going, clinking beer mugs. I was asked to do that once. Fire Road H, Indian Township, Maine. Good effing luck finding me. Didn't occur to me to give what frequency my VHF radio would have been on. A long while back, but my school banned the color pink because a bunch of students were wearing it one October and they thought it was a gang thing. It was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The rule didn't go well for them. My principal banned pink silicone bracelets. They were being sold in town to raise money for breast cancer. 6 months later she had to have chemo to treat her breast cancer. It's not really funny, but it is kind of ironic. Edit, yes, she survived. I still see her around town on occasion, full remission, back to better health than before. In Las Vegas, the fire departments had a policy that if someone called out and you covered their shift, you get paid overtime. Eventually every firefighter at every department was trading shifts so that they were always making overtime. Went on unnoticed for over a year. It was a huge scandal and the ones in charge who let it go on and effectively cost the city millions had the book thrown at them hard. Edit, typo. Edit 2, wanted to make sure my information was accurate. Found with more info. The Clark County Fire Department employed 739 full-time firefighters in 2009. Of that number, 565, 76.5%, received total wages in excess of $100,000. While the $63,433 in base pay that the average firefighter received might be reasonable, the average firefighter was able to more than double that amount on the final paycheck, receiving pay for longevity, paramedic training and other allowances, as well as $25,688 in callback and overtime, to collect $129,476 in total pay. Including the $43,422 in benefits, the average firefighter received a total compensation package of $172,898. Some firefighters took home amounts far greater than the average. 2 firefighters took home wages in excess of $400,000. Several firefighters approached $100,000 in callback and overtime alone. 2 firefighters received more than $90,000 in benefits alone. Each had more than $80,000 deposited by the county into his retirement account. Web link. Something similar. We had 2 tea ladies that both worked 2.5 days each. They figured out that if they each worked 1 week on 1 week off, they get paid more with the overtime. My high school had a smoking in the bathroom problem, and to solve it, rather than having a teacher outside the restrooms during hall time, they locked all the bathrooms except one. This made it so you had to wait in a stupid long line with 1,200 other students trying to use 3 stalls for each gender in the 10 minutes between classes. During class time, they had the assistant principal sit outside the one open bathroom, and they would check your ID and sign you in and out, and only one student in at a time. Major health code violation. Kids would be holding it all day. Girls on their cycle needed the restroom and would often have to get a pass from class to go use the restroom because the lines were too long during breaks. Smokers still smoked in the gym locker rooms during changing time. This rule didn't solve anything but made it very unhygienic and rather annoying to just use the restroom. Late 80s high school rule was no shorts. Classmate came for an exam with basketball shorts on that were below her knees. Teacher made her go home to change. She came back in a micro mini skirt and wrote her exam. My high school principal was known for sending girls home to change if their bra straps were showing. In my sophomore year, he tried to send one of my classmates home, but she was like, "Nah, I've got a change of clothes, no need to send me home." So she went to the bathroom, took her bra off, and made a show of putting it in her locker. The principal was pissed, but couldn't do anything about it since she technically was following the dress code. It became a thing. Like, hundreds of high school girls removing their bra at school or just showing up braless as a big F you to the principal. As a woman, that rule made me feel incredibly self-conscious about being a girl. Like bra straps, oh no. Good on the students for balking at it. Yeah, when I was younger and approaching the need to wear a bra, I was so worried about people seeing the straps because of rules like this. Completely unnecessary, though. It's a effing strap, get over it. To make moving between classes more efficient, they had designated up and down stairways. But they didn't take into account that the stairs were located at the ends of the very long corridors, which meant it was impossible to get to your next class on time. Because of this, no one bothered trying to get to class on time and just blamed the stairway rule. When I was a teacher, one of my classes had this issue since the class they were coming from was on the other end of the building and downstairs. Considering that I always saw them rushing to at least try to get to class on time, I never enforced the rule against tardiness for that class, and luckily they were a great group and none of them ever took advantage of it. Should have taken their cues from Wayside School. Everybody goes up on the left and down on the right. Or similarly, have 2 elevators, one that only goes up and one that only goes down. Every shift, there's a quota we need to fulfill. And then, even if you do fulfill it, you have to keep working until your 8 hours are up. Cue everyone speeding for 4 hours, having a 3-hour lunch/coffee break, then slowly moving their ass for an hour. No rule about us taking necessary breaks if we're still capable of reaching the quota. Now we're allowed to stop once we're done. Geez, a 3-hour lunch break is one of the most amazing things I've heard. It gets really effing boring. For about 3 months in my last job, I would have about 40 minutes work to do per 7.5-hour shift. There's only so much time you can kill in an office building. This is my work life right now. We've reopened after COVID, but I'm at a different location and it's so slow. I have maybe an hour of actual work spread out over the whole 7.5-hour day 5 days a week. It was fun at first, but now it's just depressing. I can't wait to transfer somewhere else. Couldn't buy drinks at lunch with cash money, had to buy some voucher. They were just cheaply made laminated pieces of paper. This was 2001, I was 13 and bored. Scanned the vouchers and printed them out on paper that kind of matched the color of the vouchers. And laminated them myself. They were horrible made and not even the right color on the backside. Also crudely cut out. I made about 100 of them. I've passed them out after I tried paying with them for myself and encountered no problems. Made some new friends and up production. Took them about 3 weeks to find out, but by then the fakes ones had intermingled with the real ones and had already been resold to students via the student office. About half of the vouchers sold were fakes. Drinks were cash only from then on. They had no choice to accept the fakes one for a little while longer though, as they had sold and charged for some of them. Did they ever find out it was you by some error? Nope, I got really lucky. I'm sure fraud isn't something you want on your record. To be clear, I was young and stupid and I liked testing out the limits of where I could go. I even remember being a bit bossy when ordering, so the lady taking the vouchers would snap back at me, not paying attention to the ticket while I handed it to her, of course. It was a good lesson in people skills. I'm actually more amazed that no one ratted me out, but then again the school never made a big fuss about it, guessing they didn't want to put out a storm about how they were also selling the fake vouchers after a while. Lol. Did this with the old Seattle bus passes before they switched to the swipeable kind. The year-long passes could cost as much as $300 or, $1 at the local Kinko's to print off an entire page of them. I had a friend who just kept all of hers. Eventually they'd reuse the letter and color and she'd just use an old one. Edit, kept her Seattle bus passes, letter instead of number. Required every employee to use electronic time clocks to punch in / out for work, including lunch. Punching in late or leaving early would cause your pay to be docked and getting a discipline letter. Multiple people wanted to sabotage the clocks, cut the cords, etc., but wiser heads prevailed. Everyone arrived several minutes early and left late, every single day, to avoid getting into trouble. Unfortunately, this created unimpeachable evidence of hours worked. The employer had to pay out thousands of dollars in overtime the first month. The clocks disappeared exactly 5 weeks after they were installed with no notification. I worked in a call center and we had a similar clock system. Except we were allowed to arrive 5 minutes early, then get on the phones at their scheduled time. One girl figured out they would pay for those 5 minutes. She started clocking in earlier and earlier until she was arriving an hour early and sat around for an hour every day. 5 extra hours of overtime every week, for close to a year or more, until she quit, with one in management catching wind. One of the first jobs I had, as a trainee in a big corporation's office, my supervisor noticed I came in a few minutes late once and told me off for it. I did arrive at 9:03 or what, but a few more minutes and my computer was booted up and I started working. Same day, close to 9:30, I saw several coworkers coming out of the kitchen with coffee still in their hands and chatting, getting to their desks and just then booting their computers. Boss didn't say a word. So I took up joining my coworkers for a 30-minute coffee break every single morning for the 2 or 3 months I continued to work there. I had one job where I would get there about 10 to 15 minutes early every single day because I took the bus and the buses ran near perfectly. I was usually working 10 minutes before my start time, so I didn't think it was too big a deal that I left 2 minutes early to catch my butt home. Wrong. My boss saw me leaving once at 4:28 to get my 4:33 bus and she chewed me out for leaving early. You could show up 30 minutes early and they'd ignore you, but if you tried to leave 1 minute early they'd write you up. Bullcrap too, because we weren't hourly and my work was getting done every day and on time. And like your place, they didn't care if you showed up at 7:59 and hung out in the kitchen for 30 minutes or took a smoke break at 8:37 as long as you stayed until your end of day. They want the appearance. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.